Hi, I'm Brian from Simply Brian Enterprises and welcome to my channel. Today's video we're going to be looking at the homework solution for TopTechBoy's Raspberry Pi Pico series, lesson number 22. In my last video, lessons number 20 and 21, we took a DHT11 sensor and a couple of push buttons, and using the push buttons we augmented the output to the screen. In lesson 22 we're going to take that a step further, and instead of printing out on the Thonny console on my monitor, we're going to be printing out to the LCD display. So let's take a look at the hardware, and it's going to be tough to see because I have to do some trickery with the camera and with lighting to get the text to show up on camera. So I do apologize for the big white glowing orb at the bottom, but it's the only way I can get my display readable. And I do want to point out this little gadget that I made back in late fall, I believe, in the Raspberry Pi class, where I was able to basically assemble a DHT11 and the LCD 1602 onto a nice little ABS holder gadget, and then run the wires. So I have power running this way for both. And then over here, I've got my three data lines. I've got my data line for the DHT11, and then my I2C connection for the LCD. And so I'm going to go ahead and run the lesson 2 program. You can see I just left a message on here saying hello. I'm now going to run my program, and we're going to start it up, and we see that we're measuring the temperature and humidity. And if I just place my thumb right on the DHT11, we'll see that start to change. And just like in previous lessons, if I press the red button, it's going to change different temperature scales. So here it's in Fahrenheit and Kelvin and Rankine and back to Celsius. And again, if I hit the green button, we're going to switch from humidity to dew point in the various temperature scales. So there's Celsius and there's Fahrenheit. I should point out here, and I'll show you in the code, I had to convert this to an integer value for the dew point temperature, mainly so that it didn't fall off the screen, because when I started to do Kelvins and Rankines, the label actually fell off the right side of the screen. And here I've got temperature and dew point in Kelvin, temperature and dew point in Rankine, and we're back to Celsius. So let's take a look at our code. And this looks suspiciously like the lesson 21 code because it is for the most part the same. I've just brought in the LCD library and initialized the LCD. And I put a new variable in here for managing the change in the tact switches, and I'll show you why that is. We're going to read into the sensor. We did actually print a line to the console saying, hey, stop looking here. We don't print here anymore. And then we begin our code. So we clear the LCD. And this is just kind of a silly startup message I did. You saw where it said reading data and measuring. That was really no purpose in that. That was just a little display to get us initialized there. And pretty much the same code with one exception. I am tracking whether or not our tactical switch has changed or whether I press the button. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I first wrote this program, I was going through and clearing the LCD every time through the while loop. So that way, every time it wrote it out, I wouldn't have to worry about the artifacts of previous characters. And the problem with that is it makes a flicker in the display. Every time you clear it, it kind of flashes. And that got really annoying. So I decided what I'm going to do is I'm only going to clear it if I can track that there's been a change. If I've pressed one of the push buttons, it's actually changed the value, and I'm going to set a flag now. So now my change is set to 1. And I do the same for the green button. I'm going to move the mouse. Sorry about that. And this is all the same. The measuring the units, doing all the math, that's all the same as the previous program. The first thing I do is I looked at that tact change value. Was the button pressed? Do I need to clear the screen? Yes. Okay, I'm going to clear it, and then I'm going to clear that value back to 0. So that way, the only time it clears the screen is when I press the button. Once I press and release the button, it will clear the screen, write the new value, and then it's not going to clear it again until I press the button again. Now it will, because it's running in a loop, it will update the value. And you saw when I put my thumb on that DHT11 sensor, the humidity and temperature changed. And that's going to happen because it's just overwriting the value that's there without doing an LCD clear. Now, because we're really not going to go too far out of bounds, I wasn't concerned about moving between, holding my finger on it too long and going from like 78 Fahrenheit to 100 Fahrenheit. Well, that's not going to happen in the context of this program. So I didn't get too fancy with preventing some artifacts, but it would be very difficult to get them given my current environment. And then basically, instead of writing to the screen, I'm just writing out to the LCD. The first line is my temperature. The second line is my dew point. And again, I'm setting my values up here and then doing a decision. Do I take what I've already written or do I overwrite it? In the case of humidity, I'm going to overwrite it and drop a percentage in there. Versus if it's dew point, I'm just going to write the value straight out, essentially. And that's really all there is to it. This program wasn't that different from lesson 21, so it didn't take me too long to make the changes and get everything working. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is that I have been working on this board. This is the Pi Pico board that I kind of assembled. I think it was back just around February or so this year. I had this idea of putting my different test dev tinkering environments on these cardboard boards, and so that way I could move them out of the way. So here's my Pico board, and unfortunately you haven't seen it, but here's my Pi board that I built at the same time, and I'm able to swap them back and forth. I have been working with the Pi board, I just haven't done any filming with it, so you've not seen this, but I do still have it. Well, I've run into some challenges swapping between the boards and some things I'd like. And if you remember, because I talked about this, I think it was February, I was kind of talking about this and showing this off. One of the things I needed was to get to my table saw so I could actually cut some plywood and make something that's a little nicer. And I've actually been able to do that. And so I wanted to tell you that this will be the last time you see it set up like this. I'm going to make some changes. I really want to get my Pi 400 back. My Pi 400 was supposed to be a temporary item in the Pico class. I just set it up because it worked. Now I'm kind of done with that, and I want to take the Pi 400 back and use it for other projects. So something kind of neat is coming. It's almost finished, and now that I'm done filming, I'm actually going to tear things apart and reassemble. And so the next time I post a video, you're going to see what that's going to look like. So looking forward to seeing that. If you like this video, be sure to hit like and subscribe below, leave a comment, and I'll see you next time. For Simply Brian Enterprises, this is Brian, and thank you for watching.